All right, what's going on, guys? Let me know if you guys can hear me okay. Audio check as we get started. All right, perfect. All right, so let's get straight into it. I'm gonna pretty much watch the open. But yeah, now I kind of want to break down why I was actually bearish on this. Um, and it was very simple, really. Well, I'm gonna break it down. So just checking my other chart right now. I don't know if we're gonna get any pullback, if I'm being honest. Like if you weren't in from either over the overnight session, yeah, like if you're not in for the overnight session, doesn't look like there's really much yeah, like there was really just one opportunity during the Asia session. There's another one during the London Open. Um, but outside of that, I mean, there was actually, right, unless you traded the actual NFP news, which again, I usually don't recommend people to, there was a beautiful fair value gap that happened right here. Again, I always talk about it. I don't trade the NFP news event just because of potential slippage. You know, you never want to deal with that, but we'll break down why this was a bearish setup overall. Now, two things, you know, everyone is talking about the overall consolidation, and the market, don't get me wrong, like this market environment is not like the best when it comes to like looking for plays. I completely understand that, but the reality is like the reason why I was bearish on this and was honestly because of the higher time frame. Like whenever, so here's a little trick. Whenever you see so many daily candles like this, so many people complain and like, oh my God, this is so difficult and stuff like that. And it's not that clean. But the reality is this, two things. Number one, when you see a lot of candles, what you want to do is you want to move up a time frame higher. So if I'm on the daily time frame, I want to go to the weekly or I want to go to the monthly so I can see as little candles as possible. Because as a trader, what we're trying to do is trying to anticipate, at least for me, the way I like to trade, I want to be able to anticipate one candle. So for me, do I want to anticipate the monthly candle, the weekly candle, the daily candle, the 4 hour, the 1 hour, right? Depends on the time frame. If I'm scalping, obviously I'm going to want to look for a 1 hour bar or a 4 hour bar that I can anticipate. Now, from a higher time frame perspective, and I said this in the commentaries before, to me, this push up was only the monthly manipulation, right? Like I'm thinking that for the overall month, right, we have 25 days left in this candle, right? For me, we had bearish market structure in here. ES was also showed it pretty well as well. And we were essentially having a push up into an area of resistance on both indices. So for me, even though like everyone on the lower time frame starts to get a little bit confused, of like, oh my God, well, is this going to be a sell? Is this going to be a buy? Now, again, on this day here, I thought maybe we'd push up a little bit because if we pushed up into here, like into these highs, on the monthly time frame, it would have been essentially this order block. So I thought, okay, maybe we would push up there on that day on the daily closure. But then we got that 4 hour bearish EBP, and I was like, yeah, I'm not really feeling it anymore. Um, but yeah, I'm not really feeling it anymore. And then because again, like right in that moment, we were getting a bearish setup after sweeping liquidity running into these highs. So I kind of wanted to wait and see. And it was unfortunate because like the PM session right here, I looked at this 4 hour EBP as a confirmation. And what did we do? We inverted this bullish fair value gap. So for me, I'm like, all right, this looks pretty bearish. That's where I was looking for the sell on the 1 hour, but we had NFP today. So obviously the market ended up pushing much higher. However, we still respected that 4 hour bearish EBP candle. Beautiful rejection, beautiful rejection. Now, I'll be honest, from here, I think we are going to, I think that's it. I think especially if this daily candle closes, I can't see us rallying back up, to be honest. Usually this is kind of like the final dump, and I'm thinking we're going to head down into this low, down into this rejection block in here, which was again, like that was the area I was looking for from yesterday. For that 24 109, let's call it that. Now for the next, what I want to ideally, I don't know if we're going to get this. If we can have the next 4 hour candle rally into this prior low, right, and then we look for some sort of rejection on the hourly time frame, this becomes my area where I'm looking for sells in here, right? So the next 4 hour candle, I want us to have that candle open. We push up into this area, and I want to start to see some rejections on the 15-minute time frame. Pretty much like you see this little bit of a gap in here. I would want to see us rally a little bit at the 10 o'clock candle, which is going to be in about 30 minutes or so. So realistically, like, so again, you could still take these trades, right? I'm going to personally be looking for this. I'm going to always, as always, I always like to look at the rejection blocks. Let me see the 4 hour time frame. Yeah. So this is where I would be targeting first, but I do think we head down here. Now, again, do we do it all in one shot? Just look at this bear. We're back bearish in this overall bearish market structure, So to me, this looks pretty bearish. ES as well. Like this one was more bearish, comparatively speaking, because yesterday's daily close compared to NQ's daily close was much more significant, but this just looks so toppy. And again, when I'm looking at the weekly time frame, this looks like a topping formation. Same thing with NQ. Even on the monthly time frame, it just looks like we're going to head a little bit lower, possibly down to 22,500s. We'll see. This one would require for me to look for a target all the way down here. It would require a little bit stronger of a weekly close to then target this. But again, one piece at a time. I think this would provide a good opportunity for the New York Open if we can kind of get that next 4 hour candle, which is going to be about 35 minutes. So the next candle that opens, I want us to rally into this fair value gap that's going to possibly be created in 35 minutes to target this area in here, 24,450s. You could also use it as like a scalp target if you want to look for 24,570s. Depends on how you want to manage it. It is Friday, and we already had a pretty significant move drop. But I do think this could offer at least some sort of intraday potential scalp. Ideally like this area in here. Right there. All right. So we'll see. That would have to come at like the next 10 a.m. candle, which is about 30 minutes. So let me go through the questions. Let me know if you guys have any questions, and then yeah, I am looking to trade today. I was up last night, and that's why I didn't want to watch the NFP. I was gonna go live a little bit earlier, but I stayed up last night. Was taking a few trades on metals. I saw this in real time over here, to be honest, but I didn't want to take any trades premature on indices. And the reason why I kind of like this short is because we had this all this way, this rally came up. We ended up hitting this 15-minute gap, and we started to break down. So when I saw this during the London session, I was hesitant on taking this potential retest short because it was a 4 hour fair value gap that was like present at the time, right? So when I saw this, I'm like, all right, you know what? I would want this to inverse, and it was already getting kind of late. I wanted to go to bed, to be honest, and because I didn't want this to potentially hold, and then I ended up just going to sleep on that retest. It was like 3:45, and then off to the races. And then honestly, NFP, I'm not going to take a position, even though this was a beautiful retest on the 15-minute fair value gap. But again, I'm not trying to take that risk on the news event, So yeah, I mean, to be fair, most of these markets are consolidating, It's unfortunate, man. I really wanted to have this oil longs, but yeah, this one's all the liquidity that we have on oil. This trend line liquidity just blasted through them. Crazy. It's funny because that's the type of move I'm thinking NQ and indices should have, like that type of like big drop. But again, with all the war tensions, who knows? Maybe this drops significantly over the weekend, because over the weekend is like when they usually announce attacks and stuff like that. So we'll see. But let me go to the euro and the pound. I mean, yeah, man. Like, listen, the reality is when you look at each daily candle, so this was Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. I mean, it was limited price action, Yeah, like straight off the open. Let me go to straight off the open. On Monday, the Monday had dropped in here significantly. I mean, those moves, don't get me wrong, like there was still moves in here as I'm looking at this. But this becomes choppy, man. This becomes extremely choppy. This is the thing. As soon as I start to see narrow ranges and these candles have wicks up and down, and we have one big bearish candle, one big bullish candle. I said this multiple times. You want to avoid trading this type of market condition. Same thing with NQ on the daily time frame. NQ was just kind of crazy, but I will say this: NQ also did have pretty clean bearish structure. Like again, starting off the week, we talked about the sell-off, right, down into to the rejection block. Then when we rallied here, again, same premise, right? I want to see us drop down back down into these into that low. That's exactly what happened. The problem is if you're waiting for the New York Open, you know, you're gonna miss some of these moves. That's why I kind of preach to people, like, you kind of have to be a little, depending on the week and depending on the setup, sometimes you're gonna have to kind of be awake for these plays, right? Because during the New York Open, is not. I mean, this was a beautiful New York Open play right here. We have this beautiful swing low, swing high to target Tuesday's high. Like, again, there's opportunities in these market conditions. I just don't want people to believe this narrative that you can't trade inside of consolidation. You just have to be kind of diligent, and you have to understand that because you have this type of price action, you want to ideally be in situations where, like, you're just looking for intraday moves. The problem with looking for a big target sometimes is, like, you know, it might be limited because the market overall is in consolidation. Like, even to be fair, even now, like, this could just come down into these rejection blocks and that's it. Like, a nice daily closure here to me would be much more ideal. Obviously, there's still 7 hours to go, and, like, you don't know how this candle's really going to close. But, like, to me, if we close there, if we close like that, you know, I don't see us realistically coming all the way back up here. And if we do, you know, like, you gotta, I'll live with it. But during consolidation, like, you know, there's still plays, like, even inside of this overall range, you have a nice bearish structure, right? Even then, you have still a nice retest. You have this little bit of a move that you can take advantage of, right? And again, this is the problem. Someone will look at this and, like, oh, I want to make new lows, right? But the problem is in consolidation, right? When the market is sweeping a liquidity pool like this, and then we have a push up like that into resistance, you have to watch out for these types of lows in the marketplace where you have an order block, a fair value gap, and look at this, right? The market has bullish reactions. You have to be able to, like, react in real time to what the market is kind of ultimately showing. That's the reality of the situation. Maybe create a video on your main channel on how we create a trading plan. And yeah, I have a few videos coming out in the next few weeks. Is already lined up. So this is my rule of thumb, to be honest. Again, not everyone's gonna agree with this. I don't trade the New York Open. I'm not a big fan of trading the New York Open. I'd like to wait for the 10 a.m. candle. So I'd like to wait from 9:30 to 10:30 to just set up, because for me personally, I've realized I do not trade well at the market open, because sometimes the truth of the matter is just, like, it's gonna be a little bit whipsaw price action. Not all the time, of course, right? But the reality is, like, you are gonna have some sort of back and forth price action sometimes at the open. So my rule of thumb is I like to wait for the 10 a.m. candle to open up, because then it's like, think about it, right? When you have 9:30 to 10 o'clock, right? That 30 minutes, you could just let the market do whatever, and then you avoid all the potential chop, right? Now, it's not always gonna chop, but there's a potential that the market may start to consolidate a little bit and stuff like that. So for me personally, I like to avoid that market environment just in case. No, 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 no. I mean, I'll be honest. If you have the funds to do it, I mean, it's, yeah, why not? But I would say this, like, if you just have a buy, I mean, you could do that, but you can't do it on Apex anymore. So Apex, if I talked about it in the video, that whole buying and putting a buy stop and sell stop to take advantage of that system is no longer, like, a thing. Like, you can't do that anymore. Like, Apex will, like, I don't know if they're gonna ban you or whatever, but, like, they're not going to allow that anymore. So if you want to, like, do that methodology, you're gonna have to try it with a different firm. But Apex is like, yeah. But yeah, guys, honestly, I'm gonna watch for this. If we create this 1 hour fair value gap and then the next 4 hour bar comes up into it, I'll then start to look for a potential 15-minute or 5-minute breakup structure. Because, like, yesterday, for example, like, what went wrong yesterday, and I've probably, I mean, I was thinking, like, I was gonna get a haircut, so I couldn't really, like, manage the position, right? But, like, when you start to see something like this where the market structure is bullish on the way up to your resistance, like yesterday, for example, it was right here, right? I just placed a limit order to sell because I want to go get a haircut, right? Right there. I put a limit order, like, right around here. Pretty much put my stop loss above this swing high, the most recent swing point, which was here, and then ended up getting stopped out pretty much, like, right away. I had a little bit of a pullback, could have got out a little bit for, like, minus 0.5 R, but I was like, nah, I'm just gonna hold this. But look, on the way up, like it's bullish market structure, right? Versus like when you start to see bearish market structure like this, right? Where you start to see these bearish swings, the market, like let's say the market has a breakdown, we create fair value gaps, bearish fair value gap getting respected. That's kind of what I want to see going into the New York Open, especially if we create this 1 hour gap and this 4 hour candle, I'm sorry, this 4 hour candle on the 10 o'clock starts to retest this prior low. And you definitely do not want to see it above. Realistically, it should not really go back above here, or it might start to get choppy. So that's that 24,844. You really do not want it to go above there, because if it starts going above there, now we're back inside this overall range. So that's something that that's why I'm waiting for some sort of confirmation around this area because of that. Like, because again, the market is still consolidating, but based off the daily time frame, it does look like we're going to continue to fade off, to be honest. But again, in consolidation, it looks ready sometimes and then it doesn't, right? But yeah. Honestly, it's up to you, man. Like I don't trade I don't like trading pre-open. I feel like after the market open, I just have a better edge, to be honest, when I have that pre-market data in front of me and the market open data, because then it gives me a clear indication. Now, I will say this: if you are trading a higher time frame potential play, like let's just say this was an NFP and I was awake, right, for this. If this was an NFP, I would have probably just taken that sell at 8:30, because if I'm going to take a position on the on pre-market, it has to be that there's a clear higher time frame trend. For me, again, I know everyone's gonna look at this as consolidation, but as we talked about, for me, like weekly time frame, monthly time frame, this looks super bearish down to here. Like this has always been my objective, right? However, like if I'm bearish like that and then it's 8:30, right? So I need two components. I need one, the higher time frame has to be in a very clear like potential target, right? Number two, I need the pre-market trade to be around 8 to 8:30. And why is that? Because if I enter here, I want a decent amount of time before market opens for me to assess. Because the reality is, if I'm going to take these trades during the market open, if I'm going to take this trade of pre-market open, right? The truth is, I want to make sure that I am taking a trade with enough time that if the market keeps consolidating going into 9:30, I can cut the position just in case. Because I've been in that situation where like I hold a position and it's in consolidation, and then maybe during the market open we get some sort of spike and then drop. I want to avoid that market open potential manipulation, so I usually avoid it personally. But yeah, now we didn't really get up into that M15 fair value gap in here. But we'll see. This might just start dumping, but I'm going to kind of wait and see again on that next 1 hour. If we create this fair value gap in the next 4 hour bar, if we can get that PO3 push up. I'm going to answer this one last thing, and then I'm going to have to go because I have a couple things I got to get done this morning, guys. But I just kind of want to talk about like why I was bearish last night, why I was anticipating this potential sell-off. And yeah, what I'm looking for, again, still continued sells down into at 24,110s. Any thoughts on BTC? I've said it before. Someone talked about it at the beginning of the week. I said if we're going to look for sells, you want to wait for the market to sweep all this liquidity into this fair value gap, and that's exactly what we got. So I'm personally still bearish on this, if I'm being honest, because everyone's like they're thinking that this is bullish and stuff like that. Like everyone was getting excited on this push up. All that was happening was a sweep of liquidity. Like, look at this. We swept all this liquidity into this fair value gap, and now we're rejecting. So again, we could still keep, it depends on how this weekly candle flips, but I've always said I'm still thinking that we're going to go below 54K, 55K. But I do think at some point BTC will bottom around this big region. But yeah. All right, guys, appreciate you guys hopping on. Next week, I'm probably going to be streaming a lot more. This week, again, I was just taking care of a couple things. I was also getting my, it is Ramadan as well, so I'm fasting. So, you know, sleep has been kind of like all over the place this past week. But now I'm getting hopefully back into more of a routine. And yeah, should be streaming a lot more going into the new week. But appreciate you guys. And again, if anything sets up, the play is this. So the play I'm watching for is this 1 hour fair value gap that forms 21 minutes. I'm going to check back the charts around 10 o'clock while I get some stuff done. But essentially, I'm just waiting for this next 4-hour candle to open, have a rally, and I want to see another continuation candle like this. So what I'm waiting for is a potential retest of this low in here, which lines up with that 15-minute fair value gap, which would also line up with this potential 1-hour fair value gap. And what I do not want to see is I do not want to see any massive big, you know how we got this type of movement yesterday in that fair value gap? I don't like seeing that. And I'm going to wait for like some sort of like push up in here, breakdown on the 5-minute or 15-minute, and then start to look for those bearish fair value gaps, bearish legs, ideally. Definitely do not want it back above this 24,875s, because if I get a move back up in there, then that means we're going to go back inside this range, likely, right? So it should have a quick snap, quick rejection around here at 24,776, and then we'll kind of go and wait to see what happens from there. I would target pretty much, if we just sets up, I would target near-term objectives. If you really want to just scalp target, that 24,587, which is that 1-hour candle bar high. And if we really start to dump, maybe we take out all the slow from 24,450s and start to head a little bit lower. But it's Friday, so I'm not trying to like anticipate too much, especially because we already had a big drop overnight. But yeah, we'll see what happens. All right, appreciate it, guys, and yeah, hope everyone has a great weekend as well. I'll see you guys on Monday morning during the new live stream.